What has unfolded in the last several hours has pushed this conflict into a phase that official narratives on both sides are struggling to explain clearly. And when you place these developments side by side, a much deeper and more concerning picture begins to emerge. The first development is that Iran has reportedly launched Ghadir-class cruise missiles targeting the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group in the Arabian Sea, a claim broadcast by Iranian state television and reinforced by agencies like FARS, while multiple Western outlets have echoed the report. What makes this moment particularly significant is not just the claim itself, but the response, or more precisely, the lack of one from U.S. Central Command, which has not issued a denial, maintaining a noticeable silence while assessing the situation. In military communication terms, that silence matters, because false claims are typically denied quickly, and delays often suggest something more complex is being evaluated. The second development, unfolding almost simultaneously, involves a political rupture between the United States and the United Kingdom, where Donald Trump publicly shared a satirical clip mocking British Prime Minister Keir Starmer as weak and submissive, and did so just hours before reportedly engaging him in discussions about British naval support for operations in the Strait of Hormuz. On the surface, these may appear to be unrelated events, but in reality they are deeply connected, forming a single strategic narrative. A conflict launched without a fully aligned operational and alliance framework, now encountering real-world consequences. To understand why the missile strike matters so much, you need to understand the Ghadir system itself. This is not a random or symbolic weapon. It is a coastal defense cruise missile specifically designed to target large naval assets like aircraft carriers. With a range of around 300 kilometers and the ability to fly at extremely low altitude over water, it minimizes detection time by exploiting radar limitations. Unlike ballistic missiles, which can be tracked early via satellite, sea-skimming cruise missiles compress reaction windows dramatically, meaning defensive systems have far less time to respond. These missiles are deployed along Iran's coastline by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, extending their reach not just into the Persian Gulf, but also into the Arabian Sea. This is critical because the USS Abraham Lincoln had repositioned into the Arabian Sea to avoid the more confined and dangerous Gulf environment, where threats from submarines and ballistic missiles were higher. That repositioning was presented as a tactical improvement, but this strike suggests that Iran's reach extends further than previously assumed, effectively shrinking the safe operating space for U.S. naval assets. At the same time, Iranian military statements have shifted in tone, with officials explicitly stating that U.S. naval forces are being monitored and could face what they describe as disproportionate retaliation, signaling a move beyond the earlier eye for an eye framework into a more escalatory posture. Meanwhile, Trump's claims of ongoing negotiations with Iran have been publicly denied by multiple Iranian officials, who describe such statements as attempts to influence markets rather than reflect reality. This disconnect between political messaging and operational reality becomes even more significant when viewed alongside global economic implications, as institutions like the International Energy Agency have warned that prolonged disruption in this region could trigger an energy crisis surpassing past global shocks. Now layer onto this the growing strain in US-UK relations, which is not just a diplomatic issue but a structural one. The relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom is deeply embedded in shared military intelligence and operational systems, including nuclear coordination and the Five Eyes intelligence network. In practical terms, when it comes to clearing mines or securing shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz, the Royal Navy's capabilities are not optional, they are essential. And yet, at the exact moment when that cooperation is needed most, the public humiliation of the British Prime Minister complicates the alliance dynamic. Starmer's response, notably restrained, suggests an awareness of the strategic dependency involved, but also highlights a shift. Cooperation may continue, but enthusiasm and risk tolerance may not. This distinction matters because military alliances are not just about formal agreements, they depend on trust, mutual respect, and willingness to take operational risks. Without that, effectiveness declines rapidly. The broader strategic picture that emerges from these developments is one of accumulating vulnerabilities. The United States is facing a situation where its naval assets are being challenged in areas previously considered safer, its diplomatic messaging is being contradicted by adversaries in real time, and its key allies are hesitant to fully commit to high-risk operations. The issue of mine clearing in the Strait of Hormuz illustrates this perfectly. It is a technically demanding and dangerous task requiring specialized vessels, and while the US has such capabilities, executing the mission in contested waters where submarines and coastal missiles are active requires coordinated multinational support. European allies have largely declined to participate, and the UK, which could fill that gap, is now navigating a strained political relationship. All of this points to a central reality. The operational architecture required to sustain this conflict effectively is incomplete, and that gap is now being exposed under pressure. The reported missile engagement against the USS Abraham Lincoln is not just a tactical event. It is a signal that the assumptions underpinning current military positioning may need to be reassessed. And when combined with alliance friction and economic stakes, it suggests that this conflict is entering a phase where miscalculations could carry significantly higher consequences. The next steps will be critical. Whether US Central Command confirms or clarifies the reported strike, whether the UK commits naval support, and whether diplomatic channels produce any tangible outcomes, will all shape the trajectory of this situation. But one thing is already clear: the gap between official narratives and operational realities is widening, and understanding that gap is essential to understanding where this conflict is actually heading.